I returned from France after 10 years apart, dreaming of surprising my son Mateo and meeting my 4-year-old granddaughter Lucia in the Houston home I bought for them. But as I quietly turned my key in the front door, a woman's voice sliced through the silence. "Clean that mess up faster, or you'll get another beating tonight." I froze. Through the doorway, I saw Mateo on his hands and knees, picking up shattered dishes with trembling fingers, wearing a dirty apron that read, "Hamilton Family Property." They dared to treat my son like this. I would make them pay. My name is Elena Bennett, and this is the story of how I stood up to protect my son. Before I share this powerful story about family and justice, please subscribe to the channel and write a comment telling me what time it is where you are. I'm curious to know if you're listening during your morning coffee or winding down for the night. 10 years of working in France's hospitality and tech support industry had been worth every sleepless night. I'd managed hotels under the cold Parisian winters, saved every euro, all for this moment, coming home to surprise Mateo and finally meet Lucia face to face. The Houston streets looked exactly as I remembered as my taxi pulled up to the house on Bayou Ridge Drive. Same red brick facade, same white picket fence, same oak tree where Mateo used to climb. This was the house I'd bought for him before leaving for France, my gift to ensure he'd always have a safe place to call home. I stood on the sidewalk, hands trembling as I pulled out my key. Mateo had no idea I was coming. This was going to be the surprise of a lifetime. The front door opened silently. I stepped inside, grinning as I prepared to call out, "Surprise?" But the word died in my throat when I heard a woman's voice from the living room. "Clean that mess up faster, or you'll get another beating tonight." My blood turned to ice. Through the hallway, I saw Mateo on his hands and knees, scrubbing vomit from the hardwood floors. He wore a dirty apron with words that made my stomach lurch. "Hamilton Family Property." My son labeled like he belonged to them. Suddenly, Camilla's demeanor shifted completely. Her face transformed from cruel anger to a bright smile as she strolled toward me with arms outstretched. "Mom, welcome home," she exclaimed with false warmth. "What a wonderful surprise! Mateo was just helping with some housework. You know how he is, always wanting to pitch in." Mateo scrambled up quickly, untying the degrading apron and shoving it behind a couch cushion. His movements were frantic, desperate. "Mom," he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm fine, just tired." A small figure peeked out from behind Mateo's legs. Lucia, seeing me in person for the first time. Her big brown eyes studied me with curiosity and fear. "Daddy," Lucia whispered, "who is that lady?" The words hit like a punch. Despite our video calls, I was still a stranger to her. I crouched to her level, voice gentle despite the turmoil inside me. "Hey, sweetheart. I'm your grandma, Elena. Remember me from our video calls? I've been working far away in France, but now I'm here to visit you and Daddy." Lucia buried her face against Mateo's leg. Overwhelmed, Mateo placed a protective hand on his daughter's head. And that's when I saw it. A dark purple bruise wrapping around his forearm. "Mateo," I started, but he quickly pulled his sleeves down, shooting me a look that screamed, "Not now." Camila clapped my shoulder with practiced familiarity, warning in her eyes. "He's been a little clumsy lately," and she said with a hollow laugh. "You know how men can be, always bumping into things." Something was very wrong. The confident son I'd raised had become a frightened animal, constantly glancing at his wife for approval. My granddaughter, who should have been running into my arms, cowered like I was a threat. Standing in what should have been a joyful reunion, one thought crystallized with absolute clarity. I needed to find out what had happened to my family. And I had a sinking feeling the truth would be far worse than I could imagine. 3 hours later, I got my chance. Camila left for a business meeting, though the whiskey smell suggested otherwise. Lucia was napping, and the house felt different without Camila's oppressive presence. Mateo sat at the kitchen table, staring at his hands. In the afternoon light, the bruises were even more visible, not just on his arms, but grip marks around his wrists. "Mateo," I said gently, pulling up a chair, "tell me about those bruises. Don't say you're clumsy. I raised you. You were the most coordinated kid on the block." He flinched, wrapping his arms defensively. "It's nothing, Mom. Just work accidents. I've been doing physical tasks, helping with renovations." His voice wavered, avoiding my eyes. This wasn't my confident son who once debated politics with me over Sunday dinner. I took his hand gently. "Mateo James Bennett," I said, using his full name like when he was little. "Remember what I promised the day you were born? I'd always protect you." The dam broke. His face crumpled, tears streaming. His body shook as he collapsed into the frightened boy he'd become. "Oh, Mom," he sobbed, using the name from childhood. "I messed up so bad." After Lucia was born, Camilla got sick. Really sick up here. He tapped his temple. The doctor called it postpartum depression. I couldn't get out of bed some days. Couldn't take care of Lucia. Camila's family said they'd help take care of everything while she recovered. He wiped his nose, voice dropping to a whisper. "I was on heavy medication, Mom. Everything was foggy. I couldn't think straight. They kept bringing papers to sign. Insurance forms, they said. Medical authorizations. I signed whatever they put in front of me because I trusted them. My heart broke watching him relive this nightmare. "What kind of papers?" I asked quietly. "Property transfer documents, power of attorney forms. They said it was temporary, just until Camilla was better." He looked around the kitchen that should have been his. When the fog cleared and I understood what I'd signed, his voice cracked. They told me I'd signed the house over, that I was now their live-in caregiver, working off the debt of their help. Rage built inside me, unlike anything I'd ever felt. These people preyed on you when you were exhausted and overwhelmed. They took advantage of your wife's illness and your fear of losing your daughter. Mateo swallowed hard. They said, if I didn't obey, if I tried to leave, they'd prove I was unfit and take Lucia away. His voice broke completely. So I stayed. I've been their servant in my own home for 3 years, Mom. He walked to a kitchen drawer, pulling out a thick manila folder. I kept everything. Medical records, the papers I signed. Everything. I kept hoping someday someone would help me understand what really happened. As I opened that folder, one thought echoed. They had made the biggest mistake of their lives when they decided to mess with Elena Bennett's son. That night, I spread Mateo's medical records across the kitchen table like a detective working a case. What I found made my blood run cold. The dates told a story of systematic exploitation that was even worse than I had imagined. Mateo had signed the property transfer documents on March 15th. According to Camilla's medical chart, March 15th was also the day her psychiatrist had increased her antidepressant dosage to the maximum level due to a severe psychological episode. The next morning, I drove straight to Houston General Hospital, where Camilla had received treatment. Dr. Patricia Morrison, her former psychiatrist, agreed to meet with me after I explained the situation. "Mrs. Bennett," Dr. Morrison said, pulling Camilla's thick file from her cabinet, "I remember your daughter-in-law very well. Her case was one of the most severe postpartum depression episodes I've ever treated." She flipped through pages of notes, her expression growing more troubled. During March of that year, Camilla was barely functional. We had her on certain lorazepam and ketamine-based medications, heavy medications that severely impair cognitive function and decision-making ability. "What does that mean in practical terms?" I asked, though I was already dreading the answer. "It means she was in no condition to make any legal decisions whatsoever. The medication levels we prescribed would have left her confused, disoriented, and highly suggestible. She shouldn't have been signing birthday cards, let alone property documents." Dr. Morrison called in Rebecca Walsh, the nurse, who had worked most closely with Camilla during her treatment. Rebecca's face darkened when she heard what had happened. "Oh my God," Rebecca said, shaking her head. "I remember those days clearly. Camilla was so heavily medicated that some days she couldn't even recognize her own mother when she came to visit. She would stare at people like she was looking through fog." I specifically remember one afternoon when she tried to sign her name on a get well card from her church group, Rebecca continued. Her handwriting was so shaky and illegible that we had to help guide her hand. There's no way she could have understood complex legal documents. Dr. Morrison pulled out Camilla's medication log, pointing to the dates with her pen. "Look at this timeline, Mrs. Bennett. March 10th through March 20th was her absolute worst period. We were considering hospitalization because she was barely responsive to verbal commands." "And they had her sign legal papers during this time?" I asked, my voice tight with rage. "If what you're telling me is true," Dr. Morrison said firmly, "then what they did was not just morally reprehensible. It was legally invalid." Rebecca nodded emphatically. "I'd testify to that in court. Camilla couldn't have understood what day of the week it was, let alone the implications of signing away her house." Dr. Morrison handed me a printed summary of Camilla's treatment during that period. "Mrs. Bennett, those signatures are legally worthless. No court in the country would uphold contracts signed by someone in Camilla's condition. What the Hamilton family did constitutes elder abuse and exploitation of a vulnerable adult." As I left the hospital with that medical summary in my hands, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: hope. For the first time since I walked through that front door, I knew we had a real chance to fight back. The Hamilton family thought they were clever, preying on a sick woman and an overwhelmed young father. But They had just handed me the ammunition I needed to destroy them. Armed with Dr. Morrison's medical summary, I knew I needed professional help. A quick internet search led me to the law offices of Webb and Associates, specialists in elder abuse and exploitation cases. Caroline Webb had a reputation for taking down powerful families who preyed on vulnerable people. Her downtown Houston office occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower with panoramic views of the skyline. Caroline herself was a woman in her early 50s, with silver hair pulled back in a sharp bun and eyes that missed nothing. "Mrs. Bennett," she said, gesturing to a leather chair across from her mahogany desk. "Tell me about your son's situation. Don't leave out any details, no matter how small they might seem." I laid out everything: the degrading apron, Camilla's postpartum depression, the suspicious timing of the document signings, and Dr. Morrison's medical assessment. Caroline took notes on a yellow legal pad, occasionally asking pointed questions about dates and witnesses. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair, tapping her pen against her lips. "Mrs. Bennett, this is textbook exploitation of a vulnerable adult. What the Hamilton family did isn't just morally despicable, it's a federal crime." She spread Camilla's medical records across her desk, cross-referencing them with photocopies of the property transfer documents I'd brought. "Look at this timeline. Your son signed away a $400,000 house, while his wife was so heavily medicated she couldn't recognize her own mother." She shook her head. "Any first-year law student could get these contracts voided. But here's what makes this case special," Caroline continued, her voice taking on a predatory edge. "The Hamilton family didn't just commit fraud. They created a pattern of ongoing abuse, forcing Mateo to wear that apron, making him work as an unpaid servant, threatening to take away his daughter. That's human trafficking, Mrs. Bennett." My heart pounded as the full scope of what had happened to Mateo became clear. "What can we do about it?" I asked. "We're not just getting your son's house back," Caroline said firmly. "We're sending the Hamilton family to federal prison. But we need to be strategic." She pulled out a fresh legal pad and began outlining the plan. Step 1. We give them 48 hours to voluntarily return the property and pay damages. Some families get scared and settle when they realize they're caught. Step 2. If they refuse, we file both civil and criminal complaints simultaneously. Civil suit to recover the house and damages. Criminal referral to the FBI for human trafficking and exploitation charges. Step 3. We contact the Houston Chronicle. Public pressure can be incredibly effective, especially against families who care about their social standing. "And step 4?" I asked. Caroline smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Step 4 is when we destroy them completely. Asset forfeiture, prison sentences, and civil judgments that will bankrupt them for generations." She stood up and extended her hand. "Mrs. Bennett, I've been practicing law for 25 years, and I've never seen a case with stronger evidence. The Hamilton family picked the wrong victim when they targeted your son." "What do we do first?" I asked, shaking her hand. "Tomorrow morning, you and I are going to pay them a visit. We'll give them a chance to surrender peacefully. If they're smart, they'll take it." Her eyes glittered with anticipation. "If they're not, we'll teach them what happens when you mess with the Bennett family." Walking out of that office, I felt more powerful than I had in years. The Hamilton family was about to discover that their biggest mistake wasn't just exploiting my son. It was doing it while his mother was still alive to fight back. The next morning, Caroline and I drove through the gates of the Hamilton estate in River Oaks. The mansion loomed before us. 3 stories of Texas limestone with towering columns, displaying wealth built on exploitation. A butler led us through marble hallways lined with oil paintings of Hamilton ancestors. William Hamilton waited in his mahogany study, seated behind a massive desk. He was 70-something, with silver hair and the soft features of inherited privilege. "Mrs. Bennet," he said, without rising, voice dripping condescension. "I understand you have concerns about your son's living arrangements. Mateo is very happy working for our family." "Working?" I said, rage controlled but visible. "You mean being your unpaid slave in his own home?" William laughed coldly. "You're nobody, Bennett. My family has owned this city for 4 generations. We have judges, politicians, and police commissioners in our pocket. You think one old woman can threaten us?" Caroline stepped forward, placing a thick folder on his desk. "Mr. Hamilton, I'm attorney Caroline Webb. These are your daughter-in-law's medical records from Houston General, along with expert testimony from her psychiatrist." She opened the folder precisely. On March 15th, Camilla signed property documents while under maximum dose psychiatric medications. Dr. Patricia Morrison states she was so heavily medicated, she couldn't recognize her own mother. William barely glanced at the documents. "Camilla signed voluntarily. We have witnesses. You exploited my son's desperation and his wife's mental illness," I said, leaning forward. "That's a federal crime, Hamilton. Human trafficking, exploitation of a vulnerable adult, fraud." Uncertainty flickered in William's eyes. He picked up the medical records, his confidence cracking as he read Dr. Morrison's assessment. "This is ridiculous," he blustered, though his voice lacked conviction. "Camila needed help. We provided it. She's grateful." Caroline smiled like a shark. "Grateful? Is that why you forced Mateo to wear an apron saying Hamilton family property? Why your daughter threatened to beat him?" William's face flushed red. "How dare you come into my home making these accusations? I'll have you arrested for harassment." "Call the police," Caroline said calmly. "I'd love to explain how your family held a vulnerable woman's husband as an unpaid servant for 3 years." Just then, Camilla burst into the room, her face twisted with rage. "Dad, why are we talking to these people? Let me handle this the way we handle all our problems." Caroline didn't flinch. "Mr. Hamilton, you have 48 hours to return Mateo's house and pay $1 million in damages. If you refuse, we file civil and criminal complaints with the FBI." William stood slowly, hands shaking with fury. "You just declared war on the wrong family, Bennett. We'll destroy you and your pathetic son." "You already tried," I said, rising to face him. "But you made one crucial mistake." I stepped closer. "You left me alive to fight back." Walking out, Caroline squeezed my arm. "Perfect. They just made threats in front of witnesses. Now we have intimidation charges, too." The Hamilton family had 48 hours to surrender. Something told me they were too arrogant to take the offer. 47 hours later, the Hamilton family's silence gave Caroline all the answers she needed. The Houston Chronicle's front-page headline screamed, "Wealthy family exploits, daughter's mental illness to steal home." The article, written by investigative journalist Maria Santos, laid out every damning detail: Camila's medical records, the suspicious timing of the property transfer, the degrading treatment Mateo had endured for 3 years. The accompanying photo showed our modest house on Bayou Ridge Drive, next to the Hamilton Mansion in River Oaks, a visual representation of David versus Goliath. Within hours, the story exploded across social media. #Justice for Mateo began trending on Twitter, with thousands sharing their own stories of elder abuse and exploitation. Local news stations picked up the story, camping outside both our house and the Hamilton estate. My neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, knocked on our door that afternoon with a casserole and tears in her eyes. "Elena, I had no idea what Mateo was going through. The whole neighborhood is talking about it. Everyone wants to help." The outpouring of support was overwhelming. A GoFundMe page appeared overnight, raising money for Mateo's legal expenses. The Houston Women's Shelter offered counseling services. Even strangers stopped me on the street to express their outrage at what the Hamilton family had done. But the real victory came at 2 p.m. that afternoon, when Caroline called with news that made my heart soar. "Elena, get down to the courthouse immediately," she said, barely containing her excitement. "Judge Elizabeth Barnes just granted our emergency injunction. Mateo gets his house back today." At the Harris County Courthouse, Judge Barnes's voice rang with authority as she addressed the packed courtroom. "Based on the medical evidence presented, it's clear that Mr. Mateo Bennett Hamilton was not competent to sign these documents. The property transfer is hereby declared null and void, effective immediately." The Hamilton family's high-priced lawyers looked stunned. William Hamilton's face turned purple with rage, while Camilla had to be physically restrained by courthouse security as she started shouting threats. "Furthermore," Judge Barnes continued, "I'm granting a temporary restraining order. The Hamilton family is prohibited from contacting or approaching Mr. Bennett or his family. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest." 2 hours later, I watched from our front porch as Houston police officers escorted Mateo and Lucia home. Mateo carried a single suitcase, everything the Hamilton family had allowed him to keep from his old life. Lucia clutched a worn teddy bear, her eyes wide with confusion about why police officers were helping them. "Daddy," Lucia whispered as they walked up the front steps, "are we really going to live here now?" "Yes, sweetheart," Mateo said, his voice breaking with emotion. "We're home. We're finally home." That evening, as we sat around the kitchen table, eating Mrs. Rodriguez's casserole, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Camilla's number. "Answer it," Caroline advised, holding up her own phone to record. "Let's see how stupid she really is." I put the call on speaker. Camilla's voice was slurred with alcohol and rage. "This war isn't over, old woman," she hissed. "You think you've won? We will destroy you all. You have no idea what we're capable of." "Are you threatening my family?" I asked calmly. "I'm promising you," Camilla snarled. "Enjoy your little victory while it lasts. Soon you'll wish you'd never come back from France." The line went dead. Caroline smiled grimly as she stopped her recording. "Congratulations, Elena. She just handed us another felony charge. That night, as Mateo tucked Lucia into her own bedroom for the first time in 3 years, I felt something I hadn't experienced since I first stepped back into that house: hope. But Camilla's threats echoed in my mind. This battle was won, but the war was far from over. The first week back in our house felt like stepping into a dream I'd been having for 10 years. Every morning, I woke up to Lucia's laughter echoing through the hallways, a sound absent from these walls for far too long. Mateo moved through rooms like someone rediscovering a forgotten language, pausing in doorways, running his fingers along familiar surfaces as memories of happier times flooded back. "Mom," he said one morning, finding me making pancakes, "I forgot how good coffee tastes when you're not afraid someone's going to scream at you." Lucia slowly warmed up to me. Her shyness melted as she realized I wasn't leaving. The breakthrough came Tuesday afternoon when I found her struggling with a bicycle, clearly too small for her. "Need help, sweetheart?" I asked, crouching beside her. She looked up with Mateo's eyes, full of determination and frustration. "I want to ride like the big kids, but my bike is too baby." That afternoon, we bought a bright pink bicycle with training wheels and streamers. Watching Lucia's face light up as she pedaled around our driveway was worth every sleepless night I spent in France. I threw myself into fixing the neglected house. Loose floorboards, leaky faucets, peeling paint, small projects that kept me busy while watching my family heal. Mateo surprised me by joining in. Together, we repainted Lucia's bedroom yellow, hung new curtains, and planted flowers in the front garden. "Remember when you taught me to use a drill?" Mateo asked one evening as we assembled Lucia's bookshelf. I was 12, and Mom was convinced I'd put a hole through the wall. "You did put holes through the wall," I laughed. "3 holes. Your mother made me sleep on the couch for a week." Evenings were the best part. Real family meals with conversation and laughter instead of tense silence. Lucia would chatter about her day, showing drawings, or asking me to read her favorite story about a brave little mouse. "Grandma," she said one night, the word rolling off her tongue naturally for the first time, "will you read me the mouse story again?" My heart nearly burst. "Of course, sweetheart, as many times as you want." Mateo caught my eye and smiled. A real smile, not the forced, hollow expression I'd seen when I first arrived. "Mom," he whispered later while cleaning dishes, "I forgot what happiness felt like. Thank you for giving it back." For 10 days, we lived in this bubble of contentment. Lucia called me Grandma regularly. Mateo's bruises faded. The haunted look in his eyes began to disappear. We were becoming a real family again. But Thursday night, as I tucked Lucia into bed, my phone rang. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar Houston number. "Don't answer it," Mateo said, appearing in the doorway, worry etched across his face. But I answered. Camilla's voice was cold and sober this time, far more frightening than her drunken rage. "Enjoying your little family reunion, old woman?" she said. "Don't get too comfortable. Some storms you can't see coming until they're right on top of you." The line went dead. Lucia looked up at me. "Grandma, who was that? You look scared." I forced a smile and kissed her forehead. "Nobody important, sweetheart. just a wrong number. But as I turned off her bedroom light, I couldn't shake the feeling that our peaceful days were numbered. 2 nights later, a violent thunderstorm rolled across Houston, rattling our windows and sending sheets of rain against the house. I was lying in bed, listening to the wind howl, when I heard something that didn't belong. Footsteps on our front porch. Slow, deliberate. I slipped out of bed and peered through the bedroom curtains. Lightning illuminated a figure moving around the perimeter of our house, carrying what looked like a gas can. The acrid smell of gasoline began seeping through the walls. Camila had come to make good on her promise. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 as I ran down the hallway. "There's a woman with gasoline trying to burn down my house on Bayou Ridge Drive," I whispered urgently to the dispatcher. "Ma'am, we're dispatching units immediately. Get your family out of the house now." But before I could reach Mateo's room, I heard the whoosh of flames igniting outside. Orange light flickered through the living room windows as fire raced around the foundation of our home. Camila's voice rose above the storm, screaming like a woman unhinged. "You destroyed my family. Now I'll destroy yours. Burn it all down. Burn it all." I burst into Mateo's bedroom, shaking him awake. "Mateo, we have to go. Now! The house is on fire!" He bolted upright, instantly alert. "Lucia." We ran to Lucia's room together. She was already awake, sitting up in bed and crying as smoke began seeping under her door. The hallway was filling with thick black smoke that burned our lungs and stung our eyes. "Daddy, I'm scared," Lucia sobbed as Mateo scooped her up. "I know, baby. Grandma's going to get us out of here." The front door was blocked by flames, so I led them toward the back of the house. But as we reached the kitchen, Camila appeared at the sliding glass door, her face twisted with rage and illuminated by the fire she'd set. She was holding a crowbar. "Nobody leaves!" she screamed, smashing the glass. "If I can't have my family, nobody gets to have theirs." I pushed Mateo and Lucia behind me, grabbing a kitchen knife from the counter. "Mateo, Lucia, get out through the side window in the dining room. Go." "I'm not leaving you," Mateo cried. "Go!" I roared. "Protect Lucia!" Camilla swung the crowbar at my head, but rage had made her clumsy. I ducked and tackled her around the waist, sending us both crashing into the kitchen cabinets. The knife skittered across the floor as we grappled. "You want to hurt my family," I gasped, fighting for leverage as smoke filled the room. "You'll have to go through me first." Camila was younger and stronger, but I had 40 years of fury behind me. Every sleepless night I spent in France, every tear Mateo had shed, every moment of Lucia's childhood I'd missed, it all poured into my fists as we fought. The sound of sirens cut through the storm just as I managed to pin Camila to the floor. Through the broken sliding door, I could see flashing red and blue lights as fire trucks and police cars flooded our street. "Houston police! Everyone out of the house!" I dragged the semi-conscious Camilla toward the back door as firefighters burst through the front entrance, their hoses already spraying water on the flames consuming our home. Outside in the rain, I found Mateo and Lucia huddled together on the neighbor's lawn, both safe but shaking with terror. Lucia ran to me the moment she saw me emerge from the smoke. "Grandma, I thought you were gone." I knelt down and pulled both of them into my arms as paramedics checked us for smoke inhalation and police officers handcuffed Camilla. Our house was damaged, but still standing. The fire department had arrived just in time to prevent total destruction. "It's over," I whispered into Mateo's hair as we watched them load Camilla into a police car. "She can never hurt you again." 6 months later, I sat in the Harris County Courthouse, watching Judge Elizabeth Barnes deliver the final chapter of our story. The courtroom was packed with supporters who had followed our case from the beginning. Camilla sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, her arrogance replaced by the hollow stare of a broken woman. "Ms. Camilla Hamilton," Judge Barnes said with absolute authority, "you have been found guilty of arson, attempted murder, domestic violence, and conspiracy to commit fraud. I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison without parole." The gavel came down with satisfying finality. Camilla didn't flinch as bailiffs led her away in shackles. 2 weeks earlier, William Hamilton had been sentenced to 8 years for exploitation of a vulnerable adult, fraud, and conspiracy. The Hamilton empire had collapsed overnight. Assets frozen, properties seized, their names synonymous with shame. Caroline squeezed my hand. "It's over, Elena. They can never hurt anyone again." The court-ordered restitution was substantial. The Hamilton family paid $2 million in damages, compensation for the stolen house, Mateo's unpaid labor, emotional trauma, and the fire damage. Their mansion, cars, and business assets were liquidated to pay what they owed. We used the money to rebuild from the ground up. The new home had bigger windows, a modern kitchen, and a spacious master suite where I'd moved my belongings from France. "Because I'm not going anywhere," I told Mateo when he asked why I was staying. "Mom, are you sure? You worked so hard in France." "My life isn't in France," I replied. "My life is wherever my family is." The best addition was Lucia's backyard playground, with a swing set, slide, and sandbox. Every evening, I pushed her on the swings while Mateo tended the garden. "Higher, Grandma," Lucia would squeal, her laughter echoing across the neighborhood. At 5 years old, she had grown into a confident, joyful child who knew she was loved and protected. She called me Grandma naturally and insisted I read her the brave little mouse story every night. Mateo had blossomed too. The haunted look was gone, replaced by the spark of the strong man I had raised. He started night classes, working toward a degree in social work. "I want to help other families who've been through what we experienced," he told me. "Show them there's always hope." One evening, as I pushed Lucia on her swing, Mateo came out carrying 3 glasses of lemonade. He sat on the porch steps, watching us with a radiant smile. "Grandma," Lucia said seriously as her swing slowed, "will you live with us forever and always?" I caught the swing and knelt to her level, looking into those brown eyes, so much like her father's. "Forever and always, sweetheart. Wild horses couldn't drag me away." "Mom," Mateo called from the porch, voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for saving us. Thank you for never giving up." As the sun set over Houston and Lucia ran off to chase fireflies, I realized this moment, this perfect, ordinary evening with my family, was worth more than all my success in France. Looking back on this journey, I realized how close I came to losing everything that truly mattered. For 10 years, I chased success overseas while my son suffered in silence. Don't make my mistake. Don't let career ambitions blind you to your family's pain. This true story taught me that God has a way of bringing us home when we're needed most. Sometimes what looks like coincidence is actually divine intervention. The Hamilton family thought they could exploit a vulnerable woman without consequences, but they forgot that God sees everything, and justice always finds its way. Mateo's strength during those terrible years showed me that faith can sustain us through unimaginable hardship. These grandma stories aren't just about my experiences. They're about the power of family bonds that can never truly be broken. If you're working far from home, remember, no amount of money can replace the moments you miss with your children and grandchildren. Success means nothing if your family is suffering while you're away. This story could have ended very differently if I had arrived even a few weeks later. The greatest blessing wasn't the court victory or the new home. It was Lucia calling me Grandma, with genuine love in her voice. That's why I share these stories, to inspire other grandparents to prioritize what truly matters. Don't wait for a crisis to bring you home. Don't assume your loved ones are okay just because they don't complain. And never underestimate the power of a parent's love to move mountains when their child needs them. This true story changed all our lives forever. Mateo found his strength. Lucia learned she was protected. And I discovered that home isn't a place. It's the people who love you unconditionally. If this story touched your heart, please share your own family experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring true stories that celebrate the unbreakable bonds of family love. I stepped away from our table in the hospital cafeteria to take a call from my financial advisor, confirming the final lottery payment transfer, $8.5 million. After taxes, it was still more money than I'd seen in my entire 68 years. When I walked back, I accidentally bumped Liam's arm as he was reaching for something on the table, and in the confusion of apologizing, I noticed his coffee cup had shifted closer to mine. Again, without thinking, I switched them. Something in my gut told me to. 15 minutes later, my son started sweating. Let me back up. 3 months ago, I was buying my weekly scratch-off ticket at the 7-Eleven on Morrison Street, same as I'd done every Saturday for 20 years. Noah, my late husband, used to tease me about it. Olivia, you're going to win big one day, and I won't be here to see it. He'd been gone 4 years now, taken by cancer that ate through our savings faster than it ate through him. I'd promised him I'd keep playing, keep hoping. It was our little ritual. That Saturday, I scratched off the numbers while waiting for my morning coffee to brew. 7, 14, 23, 31, 42, and the Powerball. I checked the ticket 3 times. Then I checked the website. Then I called the lottery office. They asked me to come in immediately. The weeks that followed were a blur of lawyers, financial advisors, and reporters. I chose the lump sum. After federal and state taxes, I was looking at $8.5 million. It wasn't the full $13 million jackpot, but it was more than enough for a woman like me. I'd worked as a hospital housekeeper for 43 years, served my family through every hardship, and raised 2 kids on the salary of a woman who always stretched every dollar twice. This money meant I could finally breathe. My daughter, Emma, called me crying with happiness. She was a nurse practitioner in Seattle, married to a good man named Lucas, with 2 kids of her own. Mom, this is amazing. You deserve this. You can finally relax, travel, do all those things you and Dad talked about. We talked for over an hour about nothing and everything. It felt good. My son, Liam, called an hour later. His voice had that tone in it, the one Noah used to warn me about. Liam always sounds like he's selling something, he'd say. This time, he was selling enthusiasm. Mom, this is incredible. We need to celebrate. Ava and I want to take you to dinner at the Pinnacle, our treat. Well, technically, your treat now, right? He laughed at his own joke. I didn't. Liam was my firstborn. I'd watched him grow from a sensitive boy who loved art and music into a man I barely recognized. He'd gone into real estate right out of college, convinced he'd be rich by 30. He was 45 now, driving a leased BMW, living in a house he couldn't afford, and married to Ava, a woman who looked at dollar signs the way other people looked at sunsets. Noah never trusted Ava. 6 months before he died, he'd pulled me aside after a family dinner. Olivia, watch that. Watch. Woman around Liam. She's going to ruin him. I see it in her eyes. She married potential, not a person. I dismissed it as the medication talking. The pain, the fear. Now, holding my phone 3 months after winning the lottery, I heard his voice clear as day. But I agreed to dinner. Family was family, and maybe I was wrong. Maybe Ava had matured. Maybe Liam had grown up. The Pinnacle was 2 weeks away, but Liam called me every 3 days with new ideas. Mom, you should invest in this property. Mom, Ava saw this boat you'd love. Mom, we should start a family business together. Then I had my regular checkup at County General Hospital. Nothing serious, just the quarterly visits Dr. Henry Rivera insisted on for a woman my age with high blood pressure. I was finishing up getting my prescription renewals when Liam called. Mom, where are you? County General? Perfect. I'm 10 minutes away. Let me grab you lunch in the cafeteria. We need to talk. That should have been my first warning. Liam never just happened to be nearby. He arrived with Ava. She was wearing designer sunglasses indoors and a dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage used to be. They hugged me, all smiles and affection. Liam insisted on buying lunch, which meant I pulled out my wallet because he'd forgotten his card. We got food and sat in the corner of the cafeteria, away from the nurses and visitors. Mom, we have an opportunity, Liam started. Ava put her hand on his arm. That gesture wives do when they're steering the conversation. What Liam means is, we found the perfect investment property, a commercial building downtown. The numbers are incredible. 40% return in the first year. I'd heard enough pitches in my life to know when someone was selling swampland. I'm not interested in real estate, I said, cutting into my sandwich. I'm comfortable with my financial advisor's plan. Liam's face fell. Ava's smile tightened. Mom, don't you trust me? This is what I do for a living. Your advisor is just going to put it into boring mutual funds. This is real money. The answer is no. The temperature at our table dropped. Ava excused herself to the restroom. Liam sat back, and I saw something in his expression that reminded me of when he was 17 and I'd refused to co-sign his first car loan. Resentment. Entitlement? The belief that my money was already his. "You know, Mom," he said quietly, "Dad would have wanted you to help family." That crossed a line. Don't you dare speak for your father. He worked himself to the bone to give you opportunities, and this is how you honor his memory? By trying to manipulate me? Ava returned before he could respond. She set down 2 coffees, one for Liam and one for me. "Peace offering," she said sweetly. "Let's not fight. We're family." The coffee was in those green hospital mugs, identical except for a small chip on the rim of one. I took the chipped one. That's when my phone rang. My financial advisor, calling about finalizing the trust documents. I stood up, told them I'd be right back, and walked toward the hallway for better reception. The call took maybe 3 minutes. When I came back, I saw Liam reaching across the table, his hand moving near both coffee cups. I bumped his arm accidentally as I sat down. Coffee sloshed. He jerked back. "Jesus, Mom, watch it!" In the commotion of grabbing napkins, wiping up the spill, resetting everything, the coffee cups had shifted. The chipped mug was now on his side. The unmarked one was in front of me. I didn't move them back. We talked for another 10 minutes. Liam pushed the investment pitch again. I shut it down again. Ava's smile never wavered, but her eyes were hard. Then Liam picked up his coffee, the one with the chipped rim, and took a long drink. 5 minutes later, his face went pale. "I don't feel good," he muttered. Ava leaned forward. "What's wrong, baby?" "I don't know. My stomach. And I'm dizzy." Sweat beaded on his forehead. His hands started trembling. Ava's eyes went wide, not with concern, but with panic. She looked at the coffee cup, then at me, then at my untouched coffee. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Liam, we need to go. Now." "I'm calling a nurse," I said, standing up. "Something's wrong with him." "No!" Ava practically shouted. People turned to look. She lowered her voice. "No, it's fine. It's just his blood sugar. He forgot to eat earlier. I'll take him home." But Liam was getting worse. His pupils were dilated. His breathing was shallow. I'd seen enough injuries in hospital hallways to know when someone needed urgent medical attention. I grabbed a passing nurse. "My son needs help. I think he's having a reaction to something." The nurse took one look at Liam and called for a doctor. Within seconds, medical staff surrounded our table. They were asking questions, checking vitals, and then Liam started to seize. Ava was crying, repeating, "It's okay, it's okay, it's okay," like a broken prayer. They got him on a gurney. Dr. Henry Rivera appeared, the same doctor who'd done my checkup an hour earlier. "Olivia, what happened?" I explained as best I could. The food, the coffee, the sudden onset. Dr. Rivera's face was grim. "We're taking him to the ER. You should come." Ava tried to grab the coffee cups from the table. "Leave those," Dr. Rivera said sharply. "We need to test everything he consumed." A nurse bagged both cups as evidence. In the ER waiting room, Ava sat away from me, her phone clutched in her hands. I watched her. She wasn't calling anyone, wasn't texting, just staring at the screen. After 30 minutes, a hospital security guard named James approached me. I'd talked to him a few times during my visits. Good man, retired Marine, sharp eyes. Mrs. Reyes, he said quietly, can I speak with you privately? We stepped into a hallway. James looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, I was doing my rounds in the cafeteria earlier. I saw you and your family, and I saw something that bothered me. He pulled out his phone and showed me a video. The cafeteria had security cameras. The footage showed Ava and Liam at the table while I was on my phone call. It showed Ava pulling a small plastic bag from her purse. It showed Liam looking around nervously, then opening the bag and pouring something into one of the coffee cups. The one with the chip on the rim, James said. I was going to report it, but then you came back. And there was that confusion with the spill, and the cups got switched. I wasn't sure what I'd seen. But now, with your son in the ER, I think you need to see this. My heart hammered in my chest. My own son, my own blood, had tried to poison me. Send that video to Dr. Rivera immediately, I said, and call the police. James nodded. Already did, ma'am. They're on their way. I went back to the waiting room. Ava was gone. A nurse said she'd gone to the restroom. I didn't believe it. I walked quickly toward the hospital exit and caught her just as she was pushing through the doors. Where are you going? She spun around, mascara running, eyes wild. I can't do this. I can't. Can't do what, Ava? Watch your husband suffer from whatever you put in that coffee? Her face crumpled. It wasn't supposed to be him. It was supposed to be you. Just enough to make you sick, make you confused, so you'd sign the papers. We have a power of attorney document ready. We were going to say you were declining, that you needed help managing the money. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. You were going to drug me and steal my lottery winnings. We're drowning, Olivia. The house is in foreclosure. Liam's business is failing. We have debt collectors calling every day. That money, it could save us. And you don't even need it. You're old. You're alone. What are you going to do with $8 million? Die alone in that little house Noah hated? I had never wanted to hit a woman in my life, but in that moment, I came close. Get out of my sight before I say something we'll both regret. 2 police officers walked through the entrance behind me. Ava saw them and tried to run. They stopped her gently but firmly. Ma'am, we need you to come with us. We have some questions. The next few hours were a nightmare. Liam stabilized. The drug was a benzodiazepine, likely Rohypnol, mixed with a sedative, enough to disorient someone for several hours, not enough to kill. The police tested both coffee cups. The chipped one had the drugs. The security footage showed Ava passing the bag to Liam, and when they searched Ava's purse, they found the empty bag, a printed power of attorney document with my signature forged, and a notary stamp she'd bought online. Dr. Rivera pulled me aside. Olivia, if you drunk that coffee at your age with your blood pressure medication, it could have caused a stroke or heart attack. The interaction alone could have been fatal. I sat in a plastic chair in the hallway and put my head in my hands. My son and his wife had tried to kill me for money. Money I'd won by chance. Money that was supposed to be a blessing. Noah's voice came back to me. Watch that woman around Liam. She's going to ruin him. But Liam wasn't ruined by Ava. He had chosen this. He had held that bag. He had poured those pills into what he thought was my coffee. My son had looked me in the eyes over lunch and tried to poison his own mother. The police arrested both of them. Ava for conspiracy to commit assault, attempted poisoning, fraud, and attempted theft. Liam for the same charges. The DA's office contacted me the next day. They wanted to know if I'd press charges. I said yes. I called Emma that night. She flew in the next morning and held me while I told her everything. She cried. Then she got angry. I never liked Ava, but Liam, Mom, how could he? I don't know, sweetheart. I really don't know. The trial took 6 months. Liam's lawyer tried to paint him as a victim, manipulated by his scheming wife, but the video footage was clear. The pharmacy records showed Ava had filled a prescription for Rohypnol 3 weeks earlier, claiming she needed it for anxiety. The forged documents had both their fingerprints. And worst of all, when police searched their home, they found a journal Ava had kept, detailing their plans step by step. Liam's handwriting was in the margins, adding suggestions. The jury took 3 hours to convict them both. Liam got 4 years in prison. Ava got 6. The judge called it a betrayal of the most fundamental bond of trust between parent and child. I sat in that courtroom and watched my son's face as the sentence was read. He looked at me once, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Shame. Real, genuine shame. After the sentencing, I walked out of the courthouse with Emma. James, the security guard who'd saved my life by paying attention, was waiting outside. Mrs. Reyes, I wanted to check on you. I shook his hand. James, you saved my life. If you hadn't been watching, if you hadn't thought to record that footage, I'd be dead or worse. He shrugged. Just doing my job, ma'am. What do you make in a year at County General? He looked surprised. About $38,000, ma'am. Why? Because you're going to make a lot more than that from now on. My financial advisor is going to call you. I'm setting up a fund for your daughter's college education, full ride, any school she wants. And I'm investing in that construction business that you mentioned you wanted to start. His eyes filled with tears. Ma'am, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Good people should be rewarded, and you're one of the good ones. I didn't visit Liam in prison for the first year. Emma went a few times. She said he was different, quieter, he'd lost weight. He was taking classes, working in the prison library. She said he asked about me every time. I wasn't ready. Year 2, I went. The visiting room smelled like disinfectant and desperation. Liam looked older than 47. His hair was going gray at the temples, just like Noah's had at that age. He sat down across from me, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. I'm sorry, he finally said. I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry, Mom. Why? I asked. That's all I want to know. Why? He looked down at his hands. I was drowning. Ava kept pushing, but I'm not going to blame her. I made the choice. I looked at you, and I saw money. I forgot I was supposed to see my mother. I forgot everything Dad taught me. I forgot who I was supposed to be. Your father knew, I said. He tried to warn me about her, but he also believed in you. He believed you were better than this." "I wasn't," Liam said, "but I'm trying to be now." We talked for an hour. It wasn't forgiveness. I wasn't there yet. Maybe I never would be. But it was a start. When I left, I told him I'd come back. And I did. Every month for the next 2 years, until his release. Ava got out a year after Liam. I never saw her again. Emma told me she moved to Nevada, changed her name, and started over. I hoped she found whatever she was looking for. I hoped it was something better than money. Liam got out on good behavior after 3 years and 2 months. He moved into a halfway house, got a job at a hardware store, and started putting his life back together. He didn't ask me for money. He didn't ask me for anything except one phone call a week. I gave him that. Year 5 after the trial, I took him to lunch. Not at a hospital cafeteria, but at a small diner Noah used to love. We ordered burgers and coffee, real coffee, from mugs without chips. "I'm not going to give you money," I told him. "I'm not going to invest in a business for you, or buy you a house, or fix your problems." He nodded. "I know, Mom, I wouldn't ask. But I am going to give you a chance." I slid an envelope across the table. Inside is a letter of recommendation. My friend Harold runs a construction company. He's looking for someone to manage projects. It's hard work, honest work. The pay is decent. If you want it, it's yours. But you'll earn every dollar. Liam opened the envelope and read the letter. His hands shook. "Thank you," he whispered. "I'll work hard. I promise." "I know you will. Because if you don't, you'll answer to Harold, not me. And he's meaner than I ever was." Liam laughed. And for a second, I saw my boy again. The one who used to build elaborate forts out of couch cushions. The one who cried when our dog died. The one who hugged me at his father's funeral and whispered, "We're gonna be okay, Mom." Maybe we would be. Maybe not. But at least we were trying. The lottery money, what was left after legal fees and smart investments, went into trusts and charitable foundations. Emma got a trust for her kids' education. James's construction company grew into a successful business, and he hired 3 other veterans in his first year. I donated to cancer research in Noah's name, and I set aside a small amount for Liam's kids, if he ever had any, in a trust he couldn't touch, but they could access at 25. For myself, I kept the little house Noah and I had bought 40 years ago. I fixed the roof he always complained about. I planted roses in the garden he'd designed, but never got to finish. And every Saturday morning, I bought a lottery ticket at the same 7-Eleven. Not because I expected to win again, but because it was our ritual. Some people think money solves problems. I learned it only reveals what was already there. My son's desperation, his wife's greed, but also James's integrity, Emma's loyalty, my own capacity for both justice and mercy. Standing in line at the 7-Eleven one Saturday, 7 years after winning the lottery, a young woman in front of me dropped her wallet. I picked it up and handed it to her. "Thank you," she said. Then she looked at me closer. "Wait, are you Olivia Reyes, the lottery winner?" I smiled. "I used to be. Now I'm just Olivia." "Did you hear what happened to your son?" "I read about the trial. That must have been awful." "It was," I said. "But we're working through it. Family's complicated." She nodded. "My dad and I aren't speaking right now. Money issues." She laughed bitterly. "Always money, right?" "Not always," I said. Sometimes it's about trust. Sometimes it's about remembering who you are when everything changes. Give your dad a call. Life's too short to let money get in the way of the people who actually matter. She looked surprised, then thoughtful. Maybe I will. I bought my ticket, got my coffee, and drove home. The roses were blooming, the house was quiet, and somewhere across town, Liam was at his job, building something with his hands instead of tearing down something with his choices. It wasn't the ending I'd expected when I scratched off that ticket 7 years ago, but it was the ending we'd earned. And, in a strange way, I thought Noah would approve. He always said money couldn't buy character, but hardship could reveal it. He was right. Did you like this story? Which city are you listening to it in? Let's comment. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I look forward to your comments on this story.